Today, we're going to peel back the layers of a story you think you know. We're going on a journey way back in time to find the original blueprint, a powerful myth that just keeps showing up again and again throughout history.
You've heard this line before, right? It's instantly recognizable. It paints such a clear picture. You've got this divine birth, a star lighting up the night sky to guide the way, and wise men on a holy mission. It's a cornerstone of a massive story. But what if I told you that the entire framework for this story, the Savior's Son, the miraculous birth, the star in the sky announcing his arrival, what if that story is actually way, way older than you think? What if it was first written not on paper, but in the stars themselves?
All right, let's get into it. To find the source code for this story, we have to go way back. I'm talking thousands of years, back to ancient Egypt, to uncover the foundational myth of the god Osiris.
So at the heart of this whole thing is a family drama, really. You've got Osiris, the good king. You have his wife Isis, who's this incredibly powerful goddess of magic. And then you've got Set, the jealous brother, the embodiment of chaos and darkness. It's this timeless story of love, betrayal, and the fight for power.
The whole epic really breaks down into 4 key moments. First, the betrayal. Set murders his brother. Second, the search. Isis, completely devoted, travels the land to literally find all the pieces of her husband. Third, the resurrection. She uses her magic to bring him back to life. And finally, the miraculous birth. Isis conceives their son, Horus, who is destined to make things right. Now, this 4-act structure, that is the narrative blue part we need to keep an eye on. But here's where it gets really interesting. For the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't just some story they told around the campfire. No. They saw this exact drama playing out every single night, right above their heads in the movement of the stars.
This whole idea is called an astral myth. It's the belief that what happens in the heavens is a direct mirror of what the gods are doing. So the death of Osiris, his resurrection, the birth of his son Horus, all of it was mapped onto the patterns of the sun, the moon, and the constellations they watched every night.
And get this, we're not just guessing here. We've got the receipts. As early as the 7th century BCE, we have ancient coffins that show Osiris's resurrection happening on the autumnal equinox. By 50 BCE, the famous Dendera zodiacs lay out the entire myth in the language of the stars. And all of this was recorded centuries, literally centuries, before the Gospels were ever written.
So we have this ancient star-based story that's been around for ages. What happens when you put it right next to the gospel story? Well, the parallels, they become pretty much impossible to ignore. It's like looking at 2 different drafts of the same master story. Let's start with the Divine Mother. On one hand, you have Isis, the faithful wife who literally pieces her husband back together and conceives a son through divine magic. In some traditions, she's even connected to a creator goddess who was a virgin. Then, on the other hand, you have Mary, the devoted mother mourning her slain son, who miraculously conceives him as a virgin. You see, it's the same powerful archetype. And the story of the son is just as stunning. Horus, son of the god Osiris, has his birth announced by the morning star. Egyptian texts even talk about his birth story being told by 3 specific stars that align near the winter solstice. His whole purpose is to fight Set, the embodiment of darkness. A son of God, a birth announced by a star, a visit by 3 figures, a lifelong battle against evil. I mean, the parallels are just uncanny. Okay, now this one's a little more obscure, but it's just as wild. In Egypt, there's this jackal god named Wep Wawet. His name literally means opener of the ways. He's the guy who leads the parade, the one who kicks off the whole sacred drama. Now think about John the Baptist, a lone voice in the wilderness whose entire job is to prepare the way of the Lord and kick off Jesus' ministry. They're both heralds, opening the way for the main event. And these echoes, they don't just stop there. They ripple out into other traditions too. If we look at the Qur'an's story of Maryam, who is Mary, we find this really fascinating scene. She's in labor, she's driven to a palm tree, and the tree miraculously gives her food. So where does that specific story come from? Well, it is an almost perfect mirror of a much older Greek myth, where the goddess Leto gives birth to the god Apollo while, you guessed it, clinging to a palm tree. And here's the kicker. The Greeks straight up said their god Apollo was the same as the Egyptian god Horus. So the echo keeps going, from Egypt to Greece and into the foundation of another major world religion. So all of this brings us to the big question, right? Why? Why does this specific story with these characters and these events keep showing up across thousands of years in totally different cultures? What is so special about it? It's because we're not just looking at a story, we're looking at a set of incredibly powerful archetypes. The god who dies and comes back to life, the divine mother and the miraculous birth, the savior son whose arrival is written in the stars, the messenger who prepares the way. These pieces form a narrative so deeply human, so resonant, that we just keep telling it to ourselves in different ways. When you boil it all down, these myths are our attempt to make sense of the universe. They connect our deepest questions about life, death, hope, and salvation to the huge, predictable cycles we see all around us. The death and rebirth of the god is the death and rebirth of the crops each year. The journey of the savior is the journey of the sun across the sky. It's a way of tying our little human story into the grand cosmic one. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If this one single story has roots that go this deep, back to the stars themselves, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of our other sacred stories, the ones we build our lives around, are really just echoes of an even older tale, one that we started telling the first time we looked up at the night sky in awe.